Also, okay, so the official rules say the superdelegates don't have to vote along the lines of what the people want, but is there any sort of tradition here, any sort of accountability, like they'll lose their spot as a superdelegate if they don't vote the way they're supposed to, or is it just literally a free-for-all?
It is a free-for-all. The Democrats set it up that way because they got terrified in 1972 when they nominated McGovern, when the party bosses at that time wanted Hubert Humphrey. And they went, oh my gosh, the rabble is crazy. We need a check on their power. And that's why they invented the superdelegates. They intentionally designed it to be an anti-democratic system, which is funny considering the name of their party.
Right, it is. It's very inconsistent. Okay, so this party nomination process, who sets up these rules? Who made this up?
Each state sets up their own delegates rules. So the national party will set up the basic framework, but all the rules about who gets in, who's a delegate, who's a superdelegate is set up by the state parties. It's not outlined in the Constitution, so it's not like Bernie can take them to court. This is their party rules, and this is the party rules that he agreed to when he nominated.
Right, I want to clarify something. So for both the caucuses and the primaries, that's party related. There's nothing in the Constitution about these primary elections. Those rules in the Constitution are only about the general election?
Exactly. In the Constitution, you have Article 2 and also the 12th Amendment. That's for the Electoral College. There might be some overlap by, party officials being involved in both, but they are very separate. The delegates just go to the party's convention and are told to vote in the way they're told to vote. And the Republicans, they want to make sure that it reflects the choices of the states. Democrats, they don't want it to reflect the choice of the rabble out there in the hinterlands. They want it to kind of be leaning towards the party elite.
All right, well, let's move ahead then to the general election and talk about the delegates there, because that's a confusing process, too. So moving to the Electoral College, first of all, the convention delegates and the Electoral College delegates, those are entirely separate people, correct?
Correct. And yeah, they might be party faithful still and things like that, but they're very different people. And technically, the Electoral College people aren't, we call them delegates quite often, but they're officially called electors in the Constitution. So that is a very different thing. Now, electors could vote against their state. Say Arizona, you could have the elector saying, oh no, we love Bernie and Hillary, which is not an Arizona choice, really. They could do that, but the Electoral College knows if they go off the reservation too much, people are just going to call to abolish the Electoral College and they'll be out of a gig.
Okay, so is this a sense between tradition and rules again? Like the rules say that you're not required to adhere to what the people vote for, but if you don't traditionally in the Electoral College, if you don't stick by that, then you're out of there?
Right, pretty much. It's tradition guides it. And seriously, a lot of people don't like the Electoral College as it is because it is a non-democratic type situation when we say we're a republic, but people say, oh, we're a democracy, it's anti-democratic. It was set up that way intentionally, but if they got too far afield and just pulled some name out of a hat and decided to vote for that person, they'd be in for a very rough road, and I bet a lot of people would try to get that out of the Constitution.
John, why are we set up in the way that we are? Why do we have an electoral college? Why is it set up like a republic in the way that it is, rather than a pure democracy that just would count the votes and the winner with the most votes wins?
Right. The Constitution, it's kind of interesting. You talk about checks and balances between the White House and Congress. They also set up checks and balances between the elites, which most of them were, obviously, and the people. They didn't want the elites to have too much power. They didn't want, say, the mob to have too much power. They were afraid of the tyranny of a tyrant, but also concerned about the tyranny of a mob, which might, if people, especially in that day when people weren't as well educated, you didn't have fine networks like this where people could hear the other side, you might have people coming up with all kind of crazy ideas. So they tried to put brakes on every institution to make sure that no one institution ran away with all the power.
So essentially it's a compromise then, in the sense that the House and the Senate are a compromise of the two different ways our founding fathers wanted to represent the people. The Electoral College is a compromise between those who wanted it to be by popular vote and those who wanted just Congress to elect the president, and it balances out.